Hi kids, for your level 4 drawing today, guided drawing, I'm going to show you how to make an Edward Hopper inspired landscape. Edward Hopper was known for using these really cool like angular shadows, washes, and these neat subdued colors. So mine's still a little wet, that's why it's running. But I'm going to also show you how to use salt and washes to create value and to make these really cool starry looking skies. And I'll say it a few times, if you don't have watercolor, don't worry about it. You can also just color these however you want with crayons or something else. So let's get started. I'm going to start this slideshow, I'm going to start the lesson with our mantra, and then I'm going to show you some paintings by Edward Hopper. So I make messes. I make mistakes. Deep inside, I got what it takes. I am an artist. Good job, guys. Let's get started. Okay, kids, so for the Edward Hopper landscape, I'm using a thicker paper because I'm going to use paint, but you can use any paper that you want. So we're going to start. I'm not going to fold this because you don't really need to. Well, I might as well do it just to keep with tradition. Okay, so I'm going to fold my paper. It's harder to fold this watercolor paper. Okay, and I'm going to draw the ground line. Again, just to show you, we're doing this Edward Hopper, who's a painter. I'll show you one of his paintings at the end of this, who uses this kind of like Maine-like style, like Maine-like the state. Okay, so then we're going to do the houses. We're going to make 2 triangles that are opened on the bottom. And then we're going to bring those triangles down to the ground line. And then we'll finish the house. So I just traced this middle line and then drew a line straight down the center and then connected the gables of the roofs. And then I can draw a little shed over here. It's kind of like half of a trapezoid. You can do that however you want. It's a little shed. And then pop some windows in there, wherever you want them. And I'm not so worried about making these shapes perfect because perfect is boring for one, and when I trace, I can fix all those witness marks. Okay, next we'll do our lighthouse. 2 lines down here for the base, connect the top. I'm doing this fast because I need to talk to Mr. Henson here in a minute. And then we'll make a teeny tiny rectangle up here. You can always pause the video if I'm going too fast. And then we're going to come up here into this quadrant, and we're going to imagine the middle of the base kind of comes up and making a witness mark. And I'm going to make a tiny little arch up here. From there, I'm going to angle my arch down to the base. And then I'll finish the top. And we've done lighthouses before. Remember, you can do them however you like. So on this one, I'm going to come straight up. And then I'm going to make this same arch again and draw stripes. But like I said, if you want to do this differently, go for it. And then I'll put a dome on top, which is just another arch and a little circle. So this is where the light would come out of the lighthouse. And then I'm going to put this little area where whoever is taking care of the lighthouse could access the outside. It's kind of like I don't know what you would call it. And so then we'll make these little lines here, straight down, another little arch. And then we will do this as well. And straight lines here. All right, and then I'm gonna erase these witness marks. So here in just a sec, I will show you how to paint this, and I'm not gonna do that in sped up motion, I'm gonna do that in real time. so you guys can see some fun watercolor tricks if you have watercolor at home. But if you do not have watercolor at home, you can color it with whatever you want. Good job. Guys, good job. Not telling myself good job. Okay guys, so I'm gonna show you some watercolor tricks. I've got water, watercolor, and some salt. It's best if you use just cheap old grocery store salt, none of that fancy like grindy rock salt. If you don't have watercolors at home, that's fine. And you can color your Edward Hopper landscape, inspired landscape, with whatever you want. But just like the pictures I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, Edward Hopper used those really subdued kind of dreamy colors, so try to stick to that. So the first thing we're going to do is trace with a crayon. Normally you see me tracing with a Sharpie, but since we're using watercolor, I want to use something that's wax or oil based because this will resist the water of the paint and keep the colors inside the lines. So I'm going to speed the video up and trace with a crayon. Okay, so now to finish this one up, I am going to start by wetting all of my watercolors. Let me show you guys how to do that real quick. I'm always going to start with my lighter colors and thinking about what I want to use. So I don't need purple, I don't need brown, I don't need green, or I do need green, I don't need red. So I'm only going to wet the colors that I need. Water, paint, remembering that pattern, always going back to your water. Water, paint, water, paint. I need orange, but I'm going to mix up a different color orange in a second. I need black, but I'm going to always wet the black one last so I don't drag it into the other colors. I need blue. And I need green. And I need black, which is a very important color in watercolors, but it can muddy up my non-contrast colors. So, and white would do the same thing if we had white watercolor. It can also drag into colors and muddy them up. Okay, so I'm gonna mix a different color of orange. I'm gonna put some water up here in my well. Water, paint, water, paint, water, paint. And then I'm gonna put some orange in there. And this is gonna be the roof of the house. And I'm using the regular orange in the lighthouse. So I wanna make a different color of orange. I'm just gonna take some little bit of brown and put that in my orange, just to change it a little bit from this. We don't have two of the same orange, okay. So you can see that that looks brown, but it's actually gonna come off orange on my paper. All right, so we are going to start with the larger areas first with watercolor. That is because if we start with the smaller areas, we can accidentally drag that into the larger areas. But if we start with these big spaces first and we get things into these smaller spaces, we can always paint back over them. So I'm gonna start with the grass, and I want a darker value of green on the top, and I want it to kind of fade to a lighter green. So let's do it. Just get my green, and I'm gonna make sure that it's a really thick green on top. You'll notice how even if I try to paint over that line of crayon, the paint's not gonna cross it because the wax is resisting the water. I mean, if I painted over it, it would cross it, but then you'd still see that strong black line in the center. I'm gonna do a little bit more darker value over here. Okay. So now I'm gonna make another green. I already did my orange, and now I'm gonna do my green. You can do this in any order that you want. Try not to make this video too long or it won't upload. I'm gonna put some yellow in there. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of green. That's just gonna brighten that color up to make a little bit different. And you'll get these really cool spots where they kind of blend and dance together. So it's fun about watercolor. It never does what you want, but you almost always get something pretty beautiful. Okay, so I've got my green done. I hear somebody outside my door. I wonder who it is. My grass is done. Now I'm gonna come up to the sky. In the sky, I'm gonna use salt to draw the paint out of the paper. So the trick here is to make sure that your paint is staying pretty wet and that when you add the salt on there, you don't touch it again. No touchy, don't touch it. So I'm gonna put a little bit of water on my paper to keep it wet in sections. Now I'm gonna add some blue. Ooh, isn't that cool? So that's called wet on wet, when I'm taking wet paint and I'm putting it onto a wet surface, wet on wet. While it's still wet looking, I'm gonna sprinkle some salt. Not a lot, just a little. And don't touch it after that. Gonna move on to another area. You could put some purple in your sky if you wanted to. Okay, and then salt. Okay, so I'm gonna do one more section and then I'm gonna speed up the rest of this process. Wet on wet, wet paint on wet paper. And this really works best if you have like a watercolor type paper, a thicker paper like cardstock. Because if you have just regular copy paper, it's gonna absorb that paint like a napkin. All right, so I'm gonna close that window and speed this up so we can see the rest of it.